Talufalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Swiswiki. Coming up.
And one of the challenges we have is the ability to empower or help the private sector to expand.
Tonga's Prime Minister is optimistic. Also, the ongoing task of tackling drugs in the Pacific, and
if you invest in business, then this is one of the costs that you have to bear with in terms of good quality production.
The plight of garment workers in Fiji. Tonga's Prime Minister Dr. Aisake Valu-Eke says he's optimistic about this year's election and his government is just focused on doing the best they can and the Tongan people will be the judge. Dr. Eke came into power in December after his predecessor Ho'akawame Liku Siasi Sovaleni resigned in the face of a no-confidence vote brought against him by the current Prime Minister. With elections in November, Dr. Aisake Eke says his government has sought to make changes to improve the efficiency of the public service and optimise government spending. He spoke with Grace Fever Eye at his office in Nuku'alofa 2 months into his tenure.
How are individuals and families coping since the volcanic eruption?
Some of them are still yet to be settled in the new houses, and we have actually approved this year. This week, about 25 million New Zealand dollars as a supplementary estimate, and about 3 millions of that is basically to go to a completion of all the houses for the affected people. So yes, we're close to it, and we are taking to complete all of them by the end of this financial year, which is June this year.
How many of those families or people are still left unhoused?
I think probably the recent estimate that I've got is probably less than 20
families.
About 20 families, except some of them, in fact, they haven't moved. For example, the Kanukupolu village, they wait for completion of all the houses. So about 53 of them, they are almost completed. So they will want to move in, as a group. So that's the kind of thing. They still live there in their own homes where they are affected, but immediately when they finish, we will all set to come and move in and settle in the new houses.
How would you describe the progress of your government, since you've been in office?
Yes, that's right. It's after 2 months now, since we started the end of January. In fact, when we came in, we settled in and start to introduce some strategy and measures to improve, firstly, the efficiency and productivity of public services, and that includes the opening of the public offices, government ministries to the public during lunchtime. So that started with that, and also we start consolidating some of the expenditure. Some of the expenditure we feel is not productive, so we actually reduce and also reduce those kind of expenditure and transfer the resource to other important area. We also have look into growth sector. We identify, we have done some work to try to improve and also improve the contribution of the fishery sector.
Are there any challenges you wish to highlight that you've faced as Prime Minister as well?
Yes, I mean the challenges we have, some are from international scene, also from the local scene, national scenes. I think what they're doing now is just to see how we could work together. Some of the policy need to be changed, and I think that's why we aim to make the economy viable, and we have using all the potential we have, and that's why we are very specific. The challenge is to improve the economic growth, and one of the challenges we have is the ability to empower or help the private sector to expand. The private sector over the past 2 decades or 3 decades actually stayed the same. And that's a challenge we are facing. And fortunately, we have the National Development Summit a few weeks ago. Actually, we discussed a particular issue. So we're going to provide some resource. We also thankful we have ATP and other organizations providing some additional resources. So we're going to work on the resources side, infrastructure. One of the issues that we have, our current government actually determined to go ahead with is the building of a new bridge going from across to the eastern side, and that actually ease up the pressure on congestion. It's a real issue now, and also provided as evacuations a channel for people to use when there's an emergency. And also that help develop urban area for economic growth.
Elections coming up soon. What are you aiming for in the last, part of your term as Prime Minister?
I think what we're aiming at is to, as I said, put more resources and partnership with public sector to expand, particularly in the area of fisheries, also agriculture, also tourism, and also provide better services for people. That's what I want to, I want to make the people happy when they come to the office for the service of public services. That should be done.
What message do you have for the Tongan people regarding the future, especially with elections coming up, and how hopeful are you, that you'll come into another term?
I'm optimistic. So, as I said, we just do our best and let the people judge. And if they think that we deserve to go come back again and go, happy. If not, happy as well. Because a lot of the we can do and work from others outside government for the country we love. And the potential and the gift we have.
Aotearoa's top cop has reassured the leaders of Fiji and Samoa that he has their back as a region-wide drug crisis rolls on. The Pacific has been used as a transit for drug trafficking for years, but with addiction levels rising, it's quickly becoming a destination. Kaya Selby spoke with Police Commissioner Richard Chambers about his recent trip to Fiji and Samoa and what their leaders are seeking.
Concerning for both countries, and this is no surprise to me, was obviously the threat of transnational organised crime. In particular, drugs, not only in terms of the Pacific being a vulnerable location for the movement of drugs, but also, of course, how that can impact on communities, addiction and demand. And both countries are very alert to the threat of organised crime. So they wanted to talk to me about, what we're doing in that space, how we can further support operational opportunities with them. Another thing is actually the support we provide to both nations around patrol dogs. So these are detector dogs and also tracker dogs. We train detector dogs. We've deployed those. Last week we had a female policewoman from the Fiji Police graduate. We also had a Samoan customs handler graduate here in Wellington, and they'll be heading home to their countries. So we breed the dogs, we train the handlers, and they're very grateful for that support because we breed and train amongst the best dogs and handlers that exist around the world. So they're very interested in wanting to be reassured that effort that we put in for them continues. And I've given them that commitment because they rely on that to support keeping their community safe, just like we do here in New Zealand.
So what are we giving them in the narcotic space other than dogs? Are we sending staff over? Are we sending intelligence or computers or money?
Yes, no, I can give you a couple of examples there. So in Fiji, I have one of my New Zealand police staff members who's a detective sergeant here in New Zealand working with helping train and support investigations in Fiji. So this is about understanding, for example, money flows and the key components of any serious crime investigation, particularly when it comes to organised crime. So that's one example of someone who I already have up in Fiji. And one of the things that the Fiji Police Commissioner said to me was that he's really keen to ensure that support continues and, if not, expands. And then if I think about what it looks like in Apia in Samoa, there is what we call the PTCCC, which is the Pacific Transnational Crime Coordination Centre. And I've got a staff member there, and that's about intelligence, that's about understanding information that Pacific nations hold, that we share that information, we work alongside each other. That's all in aid of reducing the threat to the Pacific nations. But you can't do that on your own. You have to be able to sit and work with each other to understand what the threat is, because we all hold different information.
So in terms of information, do we have an idea with narcotics of how much is flowing from New Zealand and Australia to the Pacific region?
One of the trends that we've seen is not so much sort of what's going to individual countries, it's what's passing through the Pacific. And sometimes the destination is New Zealand, sometimes the destination is Australia, or it's moving through to other continents. Sometimes it's that coming through Southeast Asia, sometimes that's South America. So understanding the flows of commodity is a very important thing for our countries to be doing. So that's why we put a lot of effort into that. So the reality is that methamphetamine and cocaine, and this is no surprise, that there's a very lucrative market here in New Zealand like there is in Australia. And so organised criminal groups will exploit that. And one of the things that I also spoke about with leaders in both countries was the threat of corruption. Globally, that is one of the things that mines the integrity of any law enforcement agency, so staying alert to it and talking about it is critical. And I have said that we need to make sure that we're supporting all countries to realise the threat that corruption can present.
Can you just expand on the corruption piece? We're talking about the Fijian and Samoan police forces, the government at large. What are we talking about?
Oh, it's any official. Corruption, as I say, can undermine the integrity of any law enforcement effort. It's not just about police, though. It's any person, any official in a role of authority that may present a barrier to an organised criminal group furthering its business model. So sadly, whether we like it or not, corruption globally is a problem because there are often large amounts of money involved.
Do we have a sense, in Fiji and Samoa, do we have a sense of how large that corruption is among the police force? So how many police officers are engaged in corruption?
No, I don't, Kai. I mean, that's the matter for respective, police commissioners. Of course, we do provide some support about strategies that may be able to address that. But in terms of the actual issue that exists, no, I can't comment on that.
A New Zealand civil society group aiming to improve the lot of workers around the Pacific and Asia has this week welcomed a Fiji union official to Wellington to discuss the plight of garment industry workers in Fiji. Jotika Gaunda-Sharma is an official with the Fiji Trades Union Congress. She's been working alongside Union Aid in a project aiming to organise and improve conditions for garment workers in the Nandi Lautoka region. Ms. Sharma told Don Wiseman about the tough environment these workers face.
A lot of workers in the garment sector are majority of women workers who are not able to get access to employment in other fields. And most of the women in this category work in factories, and particularly in garment factories. So in Fiji, roughly an estimate, plus and minus, more than 5,000 workers work full-time in the garment factory. And this is a huge number, particularly for the urban sector where these women are employed.
A huge number, but there used to be a lot more, didn't they?
Yeah, there used to be a lot more. I think it also depends on the orders that the garment factories receive in terms of exports and sales. So the number fluctuates every now and then. There are peak times and there are off-peak times for production in the garment sector as well, which is one of the reasons why women face a lot of issues in the garment sector.
Those businesses left, and I think there's been one that's gone just recently as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Because they claim it's uncompetitive.
Yeah, this is an excuse, I would say, that we have been getting from the employers, any employers, to say that the cost of production in our country is increasing, and they compare to markets like Vietnam, Burma, other countries, also China, where the labor rate is much, much lower than what is in Fiji. But I think if you invest in business, then this is one of the costs that you have to bear with in terms of good quality production, consistent supply in terms of order. And I think this is one of the reasons why Fiji is still flourishing as one of the garment exporters in the region, if I may say.
There is a minimum wage in Fiji. From a New Zealand point of view, it's very low. It did get increased significantly, though, and I know the garment industry has said that this is one of the factors that they're losing companies. Is it a factor?
I think we have to look at this story from both sides. Yeah, when we had the minimum wage of $2.32, which is like $1.15 US, and the garment sector was still paid below that $2.32 an hour. And when it increased to $2.68 an hour, still the garment industry remained below the $2.68. So the increase did not take effect in the garment sector. This was a request by the employers in that sector. And the FTUC actually continued to lobby to increase the minimum wage to $4, which is $2 US per hour. Until last year, the industry remained under the minimum wage, well below the minimum wage. And we continued lobbying with the government. So in the last budget address, the Minister for Finance announced that the minimum wage will increase to $5, though the FTUC demand was for $6 an hour. So now our campaign is also for a living wage. We want people to be able to afford the basic necessities of life to live, and that is the reason we are asking for $8 an hour for a living wage, a national living wage to be implemented in Fiji. That's our new campaign. While the national minimum wage campaign remains at $6. I sit on the National Employment Centre board, where we decide on the wage rates for all sectors in terms of employment, whether they're interns, whether they're half-time, whether they're casual, whether they're temporary, whether they're pool workers. They all need to be paid the national minimum wage, nothing below that. And we also fought for the garment industry workers to be paid the national minimum wage. So that is something that the Ministry of Employment has now taken on board, and we hope that the minister responsible will take actions to ensure that the garment sector is paid the national minimum wage and above. Having looked at the cost from the employer side, I think no employer will employ workers just because he wants to. He will employ workers because there is work for these workers. So I think the argument that comes from the employer side is null and void. Employers continue living the life that they have lived. They can afford additional houses, they can afford SUVs, they can afford international education for their children. So I don't see why they cannot invest in our own country for the workers that help make the profit for their company, so that they can have these luxuries, even expansion of businesses in the country.
Let's look at the scheme that Union Aid is working on with you. How will you go about this?
We are fortunate to have received some support from Union Aid to assist particularly this vulnerable sector. Women workers, other vulnerable class of workers. There could be migrant workers employed in the garment sector. We have a lot of Indians working in the garment sector. We have a lot of Sri Lankans now being employed in the garment sector. And with the assistance of the Union Aid project, we are able to help this group of workers. It's been a struggle. Last few months it's been a struggle, I would say, to get these workers to come to meetings. They're very afraid to come to the union office. They're very afraid to engage with unions. They shy away from making reports about what they are facing inside the factory. And we really have had to push hard to ensure that the workers come up with the issues that they're facing inside. Otherwise, we're not able to help them. And this has only been made possible by the Union Aid project. Otherwise, this is one of the sectors which is not very much organized or in unions. We have 2 or 3 unions under the FTUC umbrella-ship, and they have garment sectors as union members, but that's a very low percentage of the membership of the working force. So this is an opportunity for us to help the workers by organizing them into unions and training them, empowering them on their rights, so that they feel free to join unions and raise issues.
Why have they not been joining unions to date?
Initially, I think about 6-7 years ago, there was a high rate of union membership from the particular factory that I'm talking about. And then there was strict management practices or procedures where the members felt that they would be safer if they did not join unions. So there was a drastic decrease in the union membership from that employment, and this can be said for other companies as well, where the workers feel that it's about their job security which matters more than them being part of the unions. And sometimes the employers tell them that we will look after you, why do you want to join unions? We have a recent case where one of the workers told us that they have to go back and ask their supervisor if he or she can become a union member or not. They can sign the union form or not. So we told them, you need to know what are the rules, what are the legislations in the country regarding union membership, joining the union. You have a right to join the union, and you do not need to ask somebody else's permission to join the union. So these are some of the things, real life examples that I can share you with, which we are facing. The migrant workers, because they come from other countries, they fear that their work permit will be taken away. The employer will send them back. The employer will not pay them the dues that they are supposed to receive as per their contract. So they stay within their own community groups, and they are reluctant to engage with the unions. They're reluctant even to talk to the local people. So it's difficult. There's double wall challenges in accessing the workers, particularly from other countries.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā, sui fua.